Welcome to Saving America. This is your host, Dr. David D. Schein. Our series interviews for Saving America establishes that the world is full of interesting people. Once you hear from our next guest, I'm sure you'll agree that he deserves the moniker of an interesting person. Saving America welcomes Jorge Fernandez. He is a visionary leader and entrepreneur with over 20 years of executive experience in both private and publicly traded companies. He specializes in electronic payments, ATMs, cryptocurrency, and precious metals.
Thank you.
Throughout his career, Jorge has driven the creation and implementation of strategic and has established several companies as market leaders. He's played a pivotal role in decision making, actively participating in design, market strategy development, and launch of innovative products, including the world's first ATM to dispense gold-backed notes. He has a proven track record of not just launching and scaling successful ventures such as PowerCoin and Level 4 Americas, but also in cultivating a collaborative and innovative company culture. Under his leadership, PowerCoin rose to become one of the most profitable crypto ATM deployers globally. During his time at Level 4 Americas, he guided the company to its position as the largest retail ATM deployer in Mexico and a prominent player in ATM software testing in the US. He steered Paramount to become one of the largest ATM operators in the US, led Heller Capital through strategic acquisitions and boosting their market power. Jorge served on the board of the ATM Industry Association, established the Crypto Deployers Forum. He is a recipient of numerous industry awards, the Lifetime Achievement Award from ATMIA, and also listed in the Marquis Who's Who directory. Holds an MBA in International Business from UMiami, Herbert School of Business, and a BS in Marketing and Computer Science from Seton Hall University. He is fluent in English and Spanish. Presently Chief Strategy Officer of Magnus Consulting, operating from both Florida and Puerto Rico. We had to shorten his bio so he would have time for the interview itself. We welcome Jorge Fernandez for his first appearance on Saving America.
Wonderful. Thank you, David, for that introduction. Are you sure that that's me that you're reading all the stuff about?
Well, I sure hope so. Otherwise, we're going to be in trouble for false advertising here or something like that. So,
I appreciate the invitation of being here.
You bet. Well, we're delighted to have you. And you are speaking to us today from your base in Puerto Rico. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Your first time interview from the island, and we're delighted to have you. As you know, we ask 3 general questions of our guests. In our year's interviewing guests on Saving America, you're our first guest to speak about Puerto Rico. You have shared with me that the island is faced with challenges, but many are the result of problems of administration. Please explain more about that to our audiences.
Sure. So one qualifier before I give my opinions, and that is I am not Puerto Rican. I wasn't born here. I wasn't raised here. I've been traveling to this island for the last 30 years on business. I've been married to a wonderful Puerto Rican lady for the last 12 years, and I've lived here for the last 5. So that's kind of my connection to the island. I have gotten pretty involved in the local, politics, not being a politician, but just being aware of what's going on in the island. And I find that, traveling the world sometimes is better to have an opinion about something when you're not emotionally connected to that subject, right? So as I've traveled here and as I lived here, and again having a Puerto Rican in my house, I hear a lot of the things that are historical, which have led to some of the problems. And again, having my background, and I'm originally Cuban, but I lived in Spain and the United States and lived abroad, done business all over the world. I'm able to look at the situation here with a completely different set of eyes from perhaps the locals who look at it mostly from a passionate perspective and point of view. So that as a background to make sure that people understand that I'm saying this not as a Puerto Rican, but as a unattached person in this situation. So on to your question. Yeah, I mean, this is an island that's it's 100 miles across and 35 miles up and down. You know, on its best day, it has about 3 million people that reside here. So you look at it and you say, you know, it should not be a difficult place to manage and govern, yet it is, right? And I am a amazing patriotic American, but I think a lot of the issues in this island are caused by the United States, because this is a place that historically, you know, it's never been independent. It was first a Spanish colony for many, many years. And then, you know, over the last 100 years or so, it's been an American colony, right? And even as an American colony, it's gone through a couple of different gyrations of that over the last you know, since the early 50s or so. It's a commonwealth of the United States, and Puerto Ricans are American citizens. But because it's not a state and it's not an independent country, it's kind of in this hybrid middle, and that creates a lot of the confusion of the local population here about who they are. Are they Puerto Ricans? Are they U.S. citizens? And the population is kind of divided, right? A lot of them, Puerto Ricans, are very proud of the island. They're very part of their heritage. And so you ask any Puerto Rican in the streets, they will tell you that they're first, you know, they're Boricuas, and Boricua is even more than Puerto Rican. Is more like a deep sense of patriotism to the island. But at the same time, they have a passport that doesn't say they're Puerto Rican citizens, right? They have a passport that says they're American citizens, and they get most of the funding for anything in this island comes from the United States. But the problem is the United States just sends money over, right, without any accountability. And there is where I think the problem lies, right? This island receives billions and billions and billions of dollars every year in aid from the United States, whether it's for social programs or just direct cash, right? But very little accountability. And human beings are very easy to corrupt. So when you have that amount of money in the hands of people that are not being you know, sort of held to any kind of responsibility what they do with the money, you know, it only helps to create this corruption, right, that is going on here. And a lot of the issues in this island are because most of the administrations, and regardless of what party is in power, they use that money and in a corrupt way. Again, these are all my opinions, but if you look at the amount of money that gets sent to the island, and then you look at the infrastructure here, things don't make any sense. Like the roads here are in very poor shape. The electric system in this island is held together by barbed wire and duct tape, right? The Hurricane Maria in 2017 kind of showed the poor state of the system, and it hasn't been repaired. It was kind of patched up, and we get electricity, but 99% of the homes in the island have a generator, right? Because we don't trust the power grid, we don't trust the generation. So you look at this island. This is an island which has one governor and literally 100 senators and representatives, right? And each one of those has a staff of people. There's 78 municipalities, each one with a mayor and staff, right? In an island 100 by 35 with 3 million people, it's not possible to govern something like this, right? There was a study done that for every dollar that this island receives in aid, 46 cents of that goes to govern, right? It doesn't have to be that way. So I think, you know, if you were to streamline the government in this place, you will probably have a much more efficient government. And if the United States were to put, accountability for every dollar that they send to the island, I think we would eliminate some of this corruption that we have here. So government here is not, people that run for governor, not just government, but any local, any public service office, it's kind of a job, right? Let's go be in power so that we can take advantage of these wonderful benefits that the United States mainland, as they call, you know, the country here, sends us every year. And so I have personal experience where people have, you know, said, hey, our party's in power right now, let's go, you know, eat at the buffet. Literally, that's how it was sold to me. And I
Wow.
qualifier. I'm not a politician. Will never pretend to be a politician. I don't like it. I steer clear of it. But it is a hobby of mine to see how the politicians work. And in my job, I've had to not just go appear before the U.S. Senate for some things that were being proposed that were going to damage our industry, but I've also appeared before the Mexican Senate for something similar. And I've spent a great deal of time between 2012 and 2014 walking the hallways of the Senate here because they were going to do something similar. So I'm very familiar with how politics works, but which is why I stay clear of it. But
Well,
again,
it is pretty interesting, and I think where you've been going ties in nicely with our second question, which is what is the viewpoint of Puerto Ricans about becoming the 51st state of the United States, which has been bopped around mostly as a political weapon because the Democrat Party believes that the island would be primarily a Democrat stronghold. I don't know if that's even true, but what are you seeing there on the ground?
yeah, so because Puerto Rico is not a U.S. State, right? There's primarily two parties here, which have nothing to do with Republicans or Democrats. The population here is divided amongst people that want statehood, right? They want Puerto Rico to be a state, and that is called the PNP party, the Partido Nuevo Progresista. And then there's the Popular Party. The Popular Party wants Puerto Rico to remain its current status quo. Okay, and then there has been a independent party that up until this year has been on the fringes, right? People that want Puerto Rico to be an independent nation, and that used to be polling around 1% of the population. Interesting this year, that party created an alliance with another party in the island, and all the polls say that they are going to be second, which is historical in the island, right? Beating the PPD, which is the Popular Party, which wants this place to be a status quo. So if they get that kind of support, it's going to be interesting how the politics in the island are going to change. Most of the polls show that Jennifer Gonzalez is going to be the new governor, and she belongs to the uh, PNP party, which is the pro statehood. But at the end of the day, all of this stuff is a lot of it is politics. To your point, right? In order for Puerto Rico to be a state, you have to have a supermajority of people voting for it. That has never happened. The best time that they've had in that is a 52% plebiscite that they did in 2012 around there, which it got 52%. But then the other party cried foul because of the way they worded the question. So the island is kind of divided between half that want it to be a state and the other half that don't want it to be a state. And the people that don't want it to be a state is mostly because of cultural reasons, right? People are, I said at the beginning, Puerto Ricans are very proud of their culture. They feel like they are Boricuas rather than American citizens. They use the passport when it's convenient, but that's when it's convenient when they travel and to get the aid and all of that stuff. But on the day-to-day basis, Spanish is the local language that people use to communicate. And I venture to say that maybe 45% of the population is bilingual. Even though the education department here gets $5 billion a year in aid from the US government, it's kind of ridiculous that the population is not 100% bilingual. You find Costa Ricans are more bilingual than Puerto Ricans, which is kind of interesting.
Interesting. Yeah.
And so the PPD wants to be status quo, send me the money, I'm going to use it however I want to, I'm going to govern myself, and I'm going to keep my culture, I'm going to send my own Miss Universe contestant, I'm going to send my own team to the Olympics. And believe it or not, as bizarre as that sounds, that is a reason that they use in order to continue to be in this status quo. The PNP party says, no, we are discriminated against because we're, second class citizens. When I've challenged everybody to define what those things are for me, nobody can give me a reasonable, unemotional answer. right? So the people that want to be independent, the PNP party, I say, well, how are you discriminated? Please explain that to a non-Puerto Rican. And they give me all these things, which are all emotional, right? None of them are factual. And so I think because of the interesting dichotomy of the island, again, there's a lot of confusion as to who are we, right? As an island, as a nation, and some people do identify with being Americans, and the PNP party is, I mean, they wave both flags with equal enthusiasm, um, and it's funny. I'm a gringo here, which is kind of ridiculous, right? But I'm a gringo here. I have a U.S. flag on my truck, and people go, oh, they refer to me in my neighborhood as the gringo, and I'm like, what's a gringo? So are you. I mean, I remember one time there was this soccer team. Anyway, it's a long story, but the U.S. was playing another country for the World Cup, and the U.S. lost, and this bunch of guys were sort of being glad that the Americans lost, but they were doing it in a very derogatory manner, and F gringo and this, that, and the other. And I went over there and I said, hey, what part of Colombia are you from? And he said, what are you talking about? I'm Boricua, And I'm like, why did you say that? I'm going, oh, because you were talking crap about the gringos, but I bet you have a US passport, right? And that threw him for a complete loop, right? And I was doing it to prove a point, right? Like, you call me gringo, but so are you. But it's part of the, again, the challenge of living here. I see when people from the mainland come to live here because they have these tax incentive programs, and they come to live here and they struggle for the first 6 months to a year because they come with the belief that, oh, this is just like moving to Kansas. No, it isn't. This is more like moving to Central America than it is to moving to Kansas, right? The infrastructure is different, the culture is different, everything is different, but there's this underlying feeling about the gringo that is coming to the island. There's a whole bunch of people that are very resentful that Americans are buying up a lot of the good Americans, right? That are buying up a lot of the good property in the island. And again, I'm not emotionally attached to any of this stuff. So even though I've been coming here for 30 years, I've been married to a Puerto Rican for 10 or 12 now, and living here for 5, my rational mind still cannot grasp this this feeling. And my wife has told me, it's like, the problem is, George, that you are a gypsy, right? You grew up in one, you were born in one place, you grew up in 2 or 3 other places, and you've been traveling the world for 30 years, and you don't have this sense of patriotism and all of that. And I'm like, okay, fair enough. Maybe if I was born and raised here and had the history that the Puerto Ricans have, maybe I would feel that way. But since I don't, I look at all these things in a very practical manner, and a lot of it doesn't make sense to me. My father, taught me that in someone else's house, you don't have an opinion, right? So I say these things to you, and I used to say these things when I first moved here to people that were from here, and I was not a very popular person. So my wife was like, "You need to tone that down." my wife is an attorney, and so she has a lot of customers, and she's known in the
Yes.
community, and she's like, "Look, stop being a gringo, and just, you're not going to change history. I agree with you now that I met you and we've traveled the world together, but you're not going to change culture. So just accept it." And so I do.
And with that, we're running a little bit long, but I
Sure.
wanted to get in our third question and give you a chance to talk a little bit about your business, because your business doesn't really have anything to do directly with Puerto Rico. But you are a pioneer in the ATM industry and crossing over with cryptocurrency, which is also something very avant-garde. Please share with the audience what you project will be the further developments in those industries.
Sure. So the whole concept of, so the first Bitcoin was created in 2009, and then by 2013, this ATM showed up that will allow a person to buy Bitcoin through an ATM, using cash. And so our company started way back then being the pioneer in driving these ATMs and allowing people to buy crypto through ATM. So today we are a software company, so we run this platform where different deployers connect their ATMs to my platform and allows them to sell crypto. So the platform does compliance and it does all the liquidity, what we call the inventory of the crypto that you have for sale. So it does everything you need to have this business. The deployers do the last mile, which is like they buy the machine and they install it at retailers and deal with the retailer. So that's what we do. That's what we've been doing. Lately, we've been pivoting a little bit and being more of a what I call a financial center, right? So we still sell crypto. That's what pays our rent. But we are also selling other products and services to that same machine, right? We're selling, all kinds of financial services, whether it be, bill pay, debit, credit card top-ups, doing currency conversions in some markets. We also started selling gold notes, right? Something called a gold back, which is an actual piece of it's the size of a currency of a $20 bill, but it's made of 100% gold, 99.9% gold, right? And so it's being sold online, but we started dispensing that through ATM. So we are integrating all of that into one device, and that's where we see our future. We're still going to be in crypto, because that's a big part of our business, but we are also pivoting to offering these other products and services to our customers, and that's we're going to see that across many different stores in the United States. And by the way, we were the pioneers in Puerto Rico in installing those kinds of machines, and we still have a leadership position here. So.
Fantastic. Well, Jorge Fernandez, it's been great having you as a guest. As you know, we became instant friends when we connected a few weeks ago. How can our audience get more information about you and your company and your endeavors?
Sure. So we have two main websites. The crypto is bitstop.co, bitstop all together .co, not without the M. And then the other one is the Gold ATM machine, and that website is goldatm.com, right? Same company, just two different products, goldatm.com.
Sounds like a lot of fun. This is Dr. David D. Schein for Saving America. Thanks for joining us. Please subscribe on your favorite platform.